Hallo almal en welkom by vandag se Afrikaansles. Hello everyone and welcome to today's Afrikaans lesson. In vandag se Afrikaansles gaan ons bietjie kyk na tye. In today's Afrikaans lesson, we are going to revise tenses. Kom ons kyk gou weer na die 3 tye. Let's look at the 3 different tenses. Teenwoordige tyd, present tense. Verlede tyd, past tense. Toekomende tyd, future tense. Daar is verskillende reëls vir tye. Kom ons kyk na elke reël. There are different rules to follow when changing sentences to past or future tense. Let's look at these rules. Reël 1 is vir gewone werkwoorde. Rule 1 is applicable to normal verbs. Wat is gewone werkwoorde? What are normal verbs? Gewone werkwoorde is elke dag se werkwoordjies soos eet of speel, praat, sing, werk, hardloop, lees, loop en drink. These are your common verbs such as eat, sleep, speak, sing, work, etc. Wanneer ons 'n sin het met 'n gewone werkwoord, is dit baie maklik om dit te verander na die verlede tyd. When we have a sentence with a common verb, it's very easy to change it to past tense. Al wat ons moet doen is het na die onderwerp plaas en ons moet ons werkwoord na agter skuif en ge aan die werkwoord heg. So what we need to do to change a sentence with a common verb to past tense, verlede tyd, is we add het after the subject in stompie and we move our verb, so one of these verbs, to the back and we add a GE. Vir die toekomende tyd moet ons sal na die onderwerp plaas en ons skuif ons werkwoord na agter. For the future tense, if we have a sentence with a normal verb or a common verb, all you're going to do is place sal after the subject and move our verb to the back of the sentence with no GE. Let's look at an example sentence. Hierdie sin lees, ek fluister 'n geheim in my vriendin se oor. I'm whispering a secret into my friend's ear. Hier kan ek sien ek is die onderwerp, so ek is my subject. Fluister is my werkwoord, so whisper, that is my verb. So fluister is 'n algemene werkwoord, 'n gewone werkwoord. 'n geheim in my vriendin se oor. 'n geheim is the object, my voorwerp. In my vriendin se oor is the place or manner in which I am doing this action. Okay, so now that we have our sentence and we know what our verb is, let's write the sentence in past tense. Kom ons skryf die sin in die verlede tyd. In die verlede tyd gaan ek begin met my onderwerp, dan gaan ek het gebruik. Nou, omdat ek het gebruik in plek van my werkwoord, moet my werkwoord agter toe skuif. So, in past tense, I'm going to add het. And because het takes the place of the original verb, I move this verb to the back. Because it is now a past tense verb, I'm going to add GE. So, ek het 'n geheim in my vriendin se oor gefluister. Kan jy sien dat niks in die sin se woordorde verander het nie? I haven't changed anything in the word order besides putting in het and moving my verb to the back and adding GE. Kom ons kyk nou na die toekomende tydsin. In die toekomende tyd gaan ons hierdie werkwoord vervang met sal. We are going to replace the verb with sal. En dan, omdat ons nou hierdie werkwoordjie uitskuif met sal, gaan hierdie werkwoord agtertoe. Because we have replaced this verb with sal, we have to move this verb to the back. So in future tense, ek sal 'n geheim in my vriendin se oor fluister. Can you see that I haven't changed the word order of the rest of the sentence? Everything stayed in exactly the same position. We simply replaced the verb with sal and we moved the verb to the back for future tense. Kom ons kyk na reël 2. Reël 2 is verskeibare werkwoorde. So guys, skeibare werkwoorde are verbs that have a preposition that it needs to attach to. Okay, so these are our verb preposition combinations. So byvoorbeeld as jy trek aan, hou vas, wens geluk, tel op, sit neer, pak in. As jy een van daai werkwoorde en sy bypassende voorsetsel sien, dan moet jy hierdie reël gebruik. So if you see a verb and its preposition in a sentence, its matching preposition, then you need to use rule 2. So reël 2 werk baie dieselfde as reël 1. The rules kind of stay the same. For example, in die verlede tyd, we are still going to add het after the subject, and we are still going to move our verb to the back and add a GE. But we need to attach this GE verb to the preposition. So that means your preposition is going to be first, and then you attach your GE verb to that preposition. And this happens at the end of the sentence. Then what happens in toekomende tyd, in future tense? We are still going to add sal after the subject. Okay, so the same as with rule 1. Then we are going to move the verb to the back, but it needs to be attached to the preposition. So the preposition will be first, and then the verb will be attached to this preposition at the end of the sentence. So let's look at an example of rule 2. Die sin lees, die meisie trek haar kouse aan. So the sentence reads, the girl puts on her socks. Nou, hier sien ek 'n werkwoord en ek sien sy voorsetsel. Okay, so immediately in this sentence I've noticed my verb and my preposition combination, trek aan. So kom ons kyk wat gebeur as ons dit in die verlede tyd skryf. The past tense sentence is going to look like this. We are going to write our subject, die meisie. Then we are going to add het. We are going to add the rest of the sentence exactly as it is, haar kouse. Then we are going to move our verb to the back, and we have to add GE to our verb, of course. But now we've noticed that we've attached our GE verb to our preposition, aangetrek. So the past tense sentence, die verlede tyd sin, is going to read, die meisie het haar kouse aangetrek. Kom ons kyk hoe lyk die toekomende tydsin. In die toekomende tyd gaan ek nog steeds met die onderwerp begin. I start with the subject, die meisie. Then I put sal to indicate that it's future tense. I put whatever is left of the sentence, and I join my preposition and my verb, aantrek. Remember, there's no GE here because we are dealing with future tense. So in future tense, the sentence is going to be, die meisie sal haar kouse aantrek. There you go. That is rule 2. Kom ons kyk na reël 3. Reël 3 is vir werkwoorde wat nie 'n ge vooraan kry nie. This rule applies to verbs where we cannot put a GE in front of the verb when we change the sentence to past tense, verlede tyd. So the reason why we can't add GE to these verbs is because the spelling of the word would be incorrect. Okay. So kom ons kyk, hierdie werkwoorde kan nie 'n ge kry nie. The following verbs cannot get a GE when we change the sentence to past tense. Beloon, vertrou, beplan, vertel, herhaal, herken, onthou, misverstaan, gesels, voltooi. So if you look at words that start with be, ver, her, ont, mis, these are all the verbs that cannot receive a ge when we change to past tense, because then the spelling would be incorrect. So we follow the same rules all the time. Verlede tyd en toekomende tyd will follow the same rules. So, wanneer ek die sin na verlede tyd verander, gaan ek nog steeds het na my onderwerp sit en ek gaan nog steeds my werkwoord na agter skuif, maar ek gaan nie ge aan die woord las nie. So when I change the sentence to past tense, I'm still going to add het after my subject. I'm going to write the rest of the sentence exactly as it is, and I'm going to move my verb to the back, but I'm going to remember not to put ge because the spelling would be incorrect. Vir toekomende tyd gaan ek nog steeds sal na my onderwerp sit en ek gaan nog steeds my werkwoord na agter skuif. I'm still going to add sal after the subject. I'm going to write the sentence exactly as it is, and I'm going to write the verb at the back. Kom ons kyk na 'n voorbeeld van reël 3. Die sin lees: David voltooi sy huiswerk in die klas. So David completes his homework in class. Nou as ek na hierdie sin kyk, sien ek 'n werkwoord wat nie met ge gespel kan word nie. I see a verb that cannot be spelled with ge when we change the sentence to past tense. So kom ons verander die sin na verlede tyd. Ons gaan die sin neerskryf en ons gaan begin met David, so we start with our subject. Dan skryf ons die werkwoord het. So then we write the verb het. Now het is the verb that indicates that I'm busy working with past tense. Because I'm replacing voltooi with het, I need to move this verb to the back, which means I can now write everything else that's left in the sentence. Sy huiswerk in die klas. And I'm going to keep it in exactly the same word order. Sy huiswerk in die klas. Then I write my verb, voltooi, and I'm going to remember not to add ge because then the spelling would be incorrect. So, die sin gaan lees: David het sy huiswerk in die klas voltooi, en dit is my verlede tyd sin. Kom ons kyk nou na die toekomende tyd sin. In die toekomende tyd gaan ons die werkwoord vervang met sal. So we are going to take the verb and we're going to replace it with sal, because sal indicates future tense. So ons gaan sê David sal, dan gaan ons die res van die sin neerskryf. We are going to write the rest of the sentence in exactly the same word order. Sy huiswerk in die klas, sy huiswerk in die klas. En dan gaan ons werkwoord laaste skryf, voltooi. So my toekomende tyd sin lees: David sal sy huiswerk in die klas voltooi. He will complete his homework in class. En dit is reël 3. Kom ons kyk na reël 4, rule 4. Reël 4 is vir 2 werkwoorde wat op dieselfde tyd plaasvind. So rule 4 applies to verbs that are done at the same time, and it's usually done by the same person. Wat bedoel ek met 2 werkwoorde wat op dieselfde tyd plaasvind? What do I mean by 2 verbs that take place at the same time? So kan ons hier die aksies gelyktydig doen. Ask yourself the question: can you do the following actions at the same time, at exactly the same moment? Kan jy loop en praat? Are you able to walk and talk at the same time? Of course you can walk and talk at the same time. Kan jy sing en dans? Can you sing and dance at the same time? Yes, you can. Kan jy eet en kyk? Yes, I love doing this. Ek hou daarvan om TV te kyk en te eet. I love to watch TV and eat at the same time. Kan jy staan en stryk? Think about your mom. Can she stand and iron at the same time? Of course, that's how we iron. We stand and iron. Alright, so all of these actions are usually done by one person at the same time. So wat gebeur as ek 2 werkwoorde het wat op dieselfde tyd gedoen word? Okay, so if I'm going to change the sentence to verlede tyd, past tense, I'm still going to add het after the subject. Can you see that this is repetitive? You're still going to add het after the subject. then it's only necessary to add GE to verb 1. So we're going to add GE to verb 1. But we move the entire phrase to the back. So this entire phrase will move to the back, but we are only going to put GE in front of verb 1. Vir die toekomende tyd gaan ons nog steeds sal gebruik en dan gaan ons hierdie frase na agter skuif. So we're still going to use sal after the subject and we move the phrase to the back. No GE required because it is toekomende tyd, future tense. Kom ons kyk na 'n voorbeeld. Let's look at an example. Olivia loop en praat oor haar interessante dag. What are the verbs in this sentence? Dis reg. Loop en praat is my werkwoorde. Nou Olivia kan loop en praat op dieselfde tyd. She can walk and talk at the same time. She is walking and talking about her interesting day. So kom ons verander hierdie sin na die verlede tyd. Let's change the sentence to past tense. Skryf jou onderwerp neer. Write your subject. Gebruik dan het om verlede tyd aan te dui. Replace your verbs with het, because het indicates past tense. Skryf die res van die sin in presies dieselfde woordorde. So we're going to write everything else in exactly the same word order. Oor haar interessante dag. Now we move this phrase to the back, and we only need to add GE to the first verb, because automatically I know that if this action was done in the past, and this action was done at the same time, then this action also happened in the past. But I don't have to indicate it because it's automatically assumed that you've done both at the same time in the past. So, jou verlede tyd sinnetjie gaan wees: Olivia het oor haar interessante dag geloop en praat. Kom ons kyk na die toekomende tydsin, the future tense sentence. Ons gaan begin met ons onderwerp. We start with our subject. Ons vervang ons werkwoorde met sal. We replace our verb phrase with sal to indicate future tense. Skryf die res van die sin presies in dieselfde woordorde. Write the rest of the sentence in exactly the same word order. Then move your verb phrase to the back. Skryf nou jou werkwoordfrase aan die einde van die sin. So ons toekomende tyd sinnetjie lees: Olivia sal oor haar interessante dag loop en praat. Kom ons kyk gou-gou na nog 'n voorbeeld. Let's look at another example. In hierdie voorbeeld word twee werkwoorde op dieselfde tyd gedoen, maar deur twee verskillende mense. In this example, two actions are done at the same time, but by two different people. Kom ons kyk na die voorbeeld. Die polisie sien die seun hardloop. The police officer sees the boy running. So we've got the police officer doing one action and we've got the boy doing another. Die polisie sien, dit is ons eerste werkwoord. Die seun hardloop, dit is ons tweede werkwoord. Wat gebeur as ons die sin in die verlede tyd skryf? What happens when we write the sentence in past tense? Hier het ons twee opsies. We can use one of two methods. In die eerste een kan ons die onderwerp neerskryf. We write the subject and we replace the verb with het. Okay, now this verb needs to go to the back. Then we write the rest of the sentence, die seun, up to the second verb. The second verb needs to remain at the back. Remember, verb 1 goes in front of verb 2. So we add GE to the first verb only, gesien and hardloop. So, my verlede tyd sinnetjie lees: die polisie het die seun gesien, verb 1, hardloop, verb 2. And only the first verb needs to get a GE, the same as in the previous example. If you are getting a bit confused, take the time to go back to the previous example and remember that the first verb is the one that gets the GE. Alright, in a case where it is two separate entities doing two verbs at the same time, we can also completely leave the GE out. Okay, so we could also say, die polisie het Die seun sien hardloop. Okay, so instead of adding a GE, we can just move verb 1 and verb 2 to the back without the GE. Remember to add your het. Okay. Kom ons skryf nou die sin in die toekomende tyd. In the future tense, we are still going to write our subject and sal. We need to move verb 1 and verb 2 to the back of the sentence. Remember, verb 1 must stay in front of verb 2. So we are going to write, die polisie sal die seun sien hardloop. Verb 1 in front of verb 2 and no GE added because this is future tense. Kom ons kyk na reël 5. Wat gebeur met twee werkwoorde wat nie op dieselfde tyd gedoen word nie? Let's look at rule 5. Rule 5 applies to two verbs that are not done at the same time. So these are not done at exactly the same moment. Okay, perhaps one action is done a little bit earlier than the second action or a few minutes earlier than the second action. Kom ons kyk, kan ons hierdie aksies gelyktydig doen? Can we do these actions at exactly the same minute? Kan ons die klere was en vou? So can you wash your clothes and fold them at exactly the same time? No, that's not possible. You have to wash your clothes in the washing machine first, you have to wait for the washing machine to stop, you have to hang it to dry, and then you can fold it. Okay. Loop en ry. It is impossible to drive and walk at the same time. At some point you walk to the car and then you drive the car to the shop. Lees en slaap. Nee, jy kan nie lees en slaap terselfdertyd nie. You can't read in your sleep. Okay? Slaap en werk. Jy kan nie slaap en werk op dieselfde tyd nie. You can't sleep and work at the same time. So what happens when we have to change a sentence with these verbs to past tense? Wat gebeur as ons hierdie sinne na verlede tyd moet verander? So when we write this sentence into past tense, we are still going to add het after the subject. But this time we will add GE to both verbs because they cannot be done at the same time. So we need to indicate that both of them happened at some point in the past tense, but obviously not at the same time. Alright, and then we are going to move the entire phrase to the back. Wanneer ons die sin in die toekomende tyd skryf, when we write the sentence in future tense, we add sal after the subject and we move the entire phrase to the back. So ons gaan nog steeds sal na die onderwerp gebruik en dan gaan ons die hele frase na die agterkant van die sin toe skuif. Kom ons kyk na 'n voorbeeld. Let's look at an example. Die sin sê moeder was en vou die strykgoed. So mom washes and folds the washing, the ironing. Okay? So we know that she can't wash and fold them at exactly the same minute. So in this sentence, when we write it to past tense, we are going to add GE to was and fou. Okay, so we write our subject and we replace our verbs with het. Het indicates past tense. So moeder het. Write the rest of the sentence, die strykgoed. Then write your verb phrase at the back of the sentence. And remember to add GE to both verbs. Gewas en gevou. Moeder het die strykgoed gewas en gevou. Mom washed and folded the washing. Okay. Kom ons kyk gou na die toekomende tydsin. In die toekomende tyd gaan ons ook begin met die onderwerp. We're going to start with the subject. Ons gaan die werkwoorde vervang met sal. So we're going to take was and fou and replace it with sal, which indicates future tense. We're going to write the rest of the sentence and we're going to move this phrase to the back so that it says was en fou at the back of the sentence and no GE required. So, die sinnetjie lees, moeder sal die strykgoed was en vou. Mom will fold and wash the iron. Okay. Kom ons kyk na reël 6. Reël 6 is vir hulpwerkwoorde. Hulpwerkwoorde het hul eie vorm in die verlede en die toekomende tyd. So, rule 6 is for auxiliary verbs. Auxiliary verbs have their own form in the past and future tense. Okay, so hulpwerkwoorde verander vorm. Hulpwerkwoorde verander vorm. And because these auxiliary verbs have their own form in past tense and future tense, that means we don't need GE. Okay, listen carefully to what I'm saying. Because the auxiliary verb changes its form in past and future tense, it is not necessary for the GE verb. Okay. So wat gebeur as ons die sin moet verander na verlede tyd? Change the form of the hulpwerkwoord. Ons gaan die vorm van die hulpwerkwoord verander. Move the second verb to the back. Ons gaan die werkwoord, die tweede werkwoord, na die agterkant van die sin skryf. Very important. We do not move the hulpwerkwoord to the back. The hulpwerkwoord stays in the same position. We only move the second verb to the back, and the second verb does not get a GE. Wat gebeur in die toekomende tyd? What happens if we need to write the sentence in future tense? We are going to add sal, because sal will indicate future tense. Then we are going to move our hulpwerkwoord and our second werkwoord to the back. So we're going to move our auxiliary verb and our second verb to the back of the sentence. And because our auxiliary verb will function as verb 1, we need to keep verb 1 in front of verb 2 at the end of the sentence. Okay, julle, kom ons kyk na die verskillende hulpwerkwoorde. Let's look at the different auxiliary verbs and how they change. Hierdie werkwoorde is my hulpwerkwoorde in die teenwoordige tyd. These auxiliary verbs are my auxiliary verbs as they would appear in a present tense sentence. If we have to change them to past tense, this is what they would look like. If we had to change them to future tense, this is what they would look like. Kom ons kyk gou na elke een. Die hulpwerkwoord moet verander na moes in die verlede tyd, maar ons hou hom op dieselfde plek. So we change moet to moes in past tense, but we keep it in the same position in the sentence. We don't move it around, and we don't add het or a GE to the verb. In die toekomende tyd gaan ons sal gebruik en moet en werkwoord 2 skuif na agter. In the future tense, we're going to use sal, which is why moet and verb 2 move to the back of the sentence. Kan verander na kon in die verlede tyd. Hou die werkwoord op dieselfde plek. So kan changes to kon in past tense, but we keep it in the same position. In die toekomende tyd gaan ons sal gebruik en kan en werkwoord 2 gaan na agter skuif. In the future tense, we're going to use sal, and kan and verb 2 are going to move to the back of the sentence. Wil verander na wou in die verlede tyd, maar ons hou hom op dieselfde plek. So will change to wou in past tense, but we keep it in the same position. There's no need for het and no need for ge, because we are going to change will to wou. In future tense, we are going to use sal, we are going to use will and verb 2 at the end of the sentence. What happens if sal is my hulpwerkwoord? Sal changes to so in past tense. There's no need for het and no need for GE. And in the future, it obviously will remain sal, and you will write the sentence the same. If we see is, my auxiliary verb is verander na was in die verlede tyd. So we change is to was in the verlede tyd. Okay? Dit bly op dieselfde plek. We don't change the position. We don't add het and we don't add ge. In die toekomende tyd gaan ons sal gebruik, maar nou gaan is verander na wees en ons skryf wees aan die einde van die sin. So in the future tense, we're still going to use sal, but if you see is in the sentence and you need to change it to future tense, you're going to change is to wees, and wees needs to move to the end of the sentence. If we see het as an auxiliary verb, we are going to add het and we are going to add gehad. Okay, because this het means to have. It is not the past tense verb, it is to have. So we have to add our past tense het and we have to change this het to gehad. Okay, and this gehad will be written at the end of the sentence. In future tense, we are going to write sal, and this het will change to he, and we're going to write that at the end of the sentence. We are now going to look at an example of each one of our auxiliary verbs in a sentence. Okay, nommer 1 is die werkwoord moet. So kom ons kyk na die sin. Tando moet haar geld spaar. Tando must save her money. Nou hier sien ek die hulpwerkwoord moet. En daar is nog 'n werkwoord spaar. So I've got must and I've got save as my verbs. In die verlede tyd gaan ek moet verander na moes en hy bly in dieselfde plek. Ek gaan nie het gebruik nie en ek gaan nie ge voor aan my werkwoord skryf nie. So in past tense, I'm going to change moet to moes and I'm not going to add het and therefore I am not going to add ge. So the past tense sentence, die verlede tyd sin lees Tando moes haar geld spaar. Going to change moet to moes and the rest of the sentence remains exactly the same. In die toekomende tyd gaan ek sal gebruik. Dit beteken ek moet skuif na die agterkant van die sin. Moet is werkwoord 1. Werkwoord 1 bly voor werkwoord 2 aan die einde van die sin. So my toekomende tydsin lees Tando sal haar geld moet spaar. She will have to save her money. Okay. Kom ons kyk na kan. Raphael kan 5 km in 30 minute draf. Raphael can run 5 kilometers in 30 minutes. Okay? So kan in die verlede tyd verander na kon. En ek hoef nie het te gebruik nie en ek hoef nie ge te gebruik nie. So ek gaan kan vervang met kon. Raphael kon 5 km in 30 minute draf. Nou kon is werkwoord 1 en draf is werkwoord 2. So wanneer ons nou in die toekomende tyd skryf, gaan ons werkwoord 1 voor werkwoord 2 aan die einde van die sin skryf. When we write this sentence in future tense, we need to keep in mind that kan is verb 1 and draf is verb 2. I need to move both verbs to the back of the sentence, keeping in mind that verb 1 must be kept in front of verb 2. So in future tense, I'm going to say, Raphael sal 5 km in 30 minute kan draf. Kom ons kyk na wil in 'n sin. As ons die hulpwerkwoord wil in die sin sien en ons moet die sin verander na die verlede tyd, verander ons wil na wou. Ons hou dit op presies dieselfde plek. Okay, so when we see will, the auxiliary verb will in the sentence, we are going to change will to wou. So this sentence, die leerders wil hulle onderwyseres verras. The students would like to surprise their teacher. When I write it in verlede tyd, in past tense, I'm going to keep will in the same space, but I'm going to change it to wou, the past tense form of that auxiliary verb. Alright, and everything else in the sentence remains exactly the same. Kom ons kyk na die toekomende tydsin. So how would we write this in future tense? It's easy to think that this sentence is already in future tense because you see the word will. But this is not a future tense sentence, this is an auxiliary verb. Okay, so this is verb 1 and verras, surprise is verb 2. So I need to move verb 1 and verb 2 to the back of the sentence, keeping in mind that verb 1 needs to stay in front of verb 2. So for future tense sentences, I'm still going to use sal. Die leerders sal. Sal is now going to take the place of the auxiliary verb. Write the rest of the sentence, add verb 1 and then verb 2 at the back of the sentence. Die leerders sal hulle onderwyseres wil verras. Kom ons kyk wat gebeur met sal. What happens to sal? Okay? This sentence is already in the future tense, so we are just going to write it in past tense. Tandeka sal haar tas by die huis vergeet. She will forget her bag at home. Okay. Sal verander na sou in die verlede tyd. So, al wat ons gaan doen is, ons gaan sê tandeka, ons gaan sal vervang met sou, en ons gaan die res van die sin net so oorskryf. Okay, so, we are going to take sal and replace it with sou. Tandeka sou haar tas by die huis vergeet. She would have left her bag at school. Kom ons kyk wat gebeur met is. So in this sentence, we are going to deal with is as the auxiliary verb. Reshma is a gawe jong dame. So Reshma is a kind young lady. Okay, that's my sentence. And is my verb here. So wat gebeur as ons die sin in die verlede tyd skryf? In die verlede tyd verander is na was. So, dit beteken ons gaan alles net so oorskryf, maar ons gaan is vervang met was. So in past tense, is changes to was. We don't need to change the position of the word, so we are simply going to take is and replace it with was. Everything else in the sentence stays exactly the same. So die sin lees, Reshma was 'n gawe jong dame. Reshma was a kind young lady. Kom ons kyk hoe lyk hierdie sin in die toekomende tyd. What happens to us in the future tense? We are still going to use sal, but we need to move us to the back. And when we move us to the back in the future tense, us actually changes to wees. So, wanneer ons die sin na die toekomende tyd verander, gaan ons nog steeds sal gebruik. Is moet agter toe skuif, maar hy gaan verander na wees. Reshma sal 'n gawe jong dame wees. She will be a kind young lady. Kom ons kyk na het. Wat gebeur as het die hulpwerkwoord in die sin is? Let's look at het. What happens if het is the auxiliary verb in the sentence? Now please note that this het does not indicate past tense. Look at the sentence. Vikesh het 'n goeie plan. Vikesh has a good plan. So this het means to have something, okay, which is the verb in the sentence. Alright, so wanneer ons hierdie sin in die verlede tyd skryf, gaan ons het verander na gehad en ons gaan dit aan die einde van die sin skryf. Dit beteken ons moet nog steeds die verlede tyd het byvoeg. When we write this sentence in past tense, we are going to add a past tense het. The original het is going to move to the back and change to gehad. So Vikesh het 'n plan, 'n goeie plan. Vikesh het 'n goeie plan gehad. Vikesh has a good plan. Vikesh had a good plan. Wat gebeur met het in die toekomende tyd? What happens to het in future tense? Het changes to he and it moves to the end of the sentence. We still use sal to indicate future tense. Okay, so Vikesh sal 'n goeie plan hê. Ons het vervang met sal en hierdie het na die agterkant van die sin geskuif, maar ons het verander na he. So, we replaced this het with sal to indicate that it's future tense. Then we moved this het to the back, but we changed it to he. He will have a good plan. Alright, julle, kom ons kyk na reël 7. Let's look at rule 7. Rule 7, reël 7, is vir sinne met voegwoorde dan, as, wanneer en nou. So, rule 7 applies to sentences where we have the conjunction dan, as, wanneer en nou. So if you see one of these conjunctions in a sentence and you need to change the sentence to past tense, we have to change these conjunctions. Alright, so the easiest thing to do is to handle these sentences separately. Hanteer die sinne apart. That means change the first sentence to past tense first, change your conjunction, then change the second sentence to past tense. Okay, So we're going to treat each sentence separately. Change the sentence before the comma to your past or future tense. Then change the sentence behind the comma or behind the conjunction to past or future tense. Okay, wat gebeur in die verlede tyd? In die verlede tyd verander ons die voegwoord na to. En dan volg ons die reëls vir verlede tyd. So in the past tense, if we see dan, as, wanneer en nou, we need to change them to. And then we still follow the normal rules that apply for past tense. So all the previous rules that you learned will still apply. In die toekomende tyd volg ons die reëls vir toekomende tydsinne. So in the future tense, we are just going to follow future tense rules. Kom ons kyk gou na 'n voorbeeld. Let's look at an example. Ek skrik as ek 'n slang sien. I get a fright when I see a snake. Nou, die eerste ding wat ek hier sien is dat ek hierdie gedeelte voor as het en ek het hierdie gedeelte na as. So I've got a sentence in front of us and I've got a sentence behind us. So what we are going to do is we are going to change this part to past tense separately, and then we are going to change the second part of the sentence to past tense separately. Okay? So if I write ek skrik in the past tense, I'm going to say ek het geskrik. If I write ek 'n slang sien, in past tense, I'm going to write ek het 'n slang gesien. Okay, so if you change them separately, this is what they would look like in past tense. So hier is hoe my sinnetjies gaan lyk as ek hulle apart verander na verlede tyd. Ek het geskrik, ek het 'n slang gesien. Okay? Alright, but now we have a slight change that needs to be made. As needs to change to according to Rule 7. Now, can you remember when we did conjunctions in the beginning of the year? We said that to is a group 3 conjunction. Group 3 conjunctions means that the verb in the second sentence needs to move to the back. And this is an ideal example. Can you remember when we did conjunctions? What did we say about het? Het is the only verb 1 that will move right to the back of the sentence behind verb 2. Okay, so a few things to keep in mind with Rule 7. Change the sentences separately. Remember that as, dan, wanneer or no needs to change to to. To is a group 3 conjunction, which means the verb in the second sentence needs to move to the back. So, my verlede tyd sin, my past tense sentence will read, ek het geskrik toe ek die slang gesien het. Remember, you've changed your sentence to past tense. You added your het and your ge to your verb. Now, because you've changed your conjunction to, you have to move your verb to the back. And het is the only verb 2 that moves to the back of the sentence. So my verlede tyd sin, ek het geskrik toe ek die slang gesien het. And that is all the rules for tenses. Dit is al jou reëls vir tye. Okay julle, voordat julle julle aktiwiteit op tye doen, kan julle ook gerus gaan kyk na bladsy 20 en 23 van jou Afrikaans Handbook and Study Guide op jou Snapify app. Before you complete the following activity, remember to look at some more examples in your Afrikaans Handbook and Study Guide on pages 20 to 23.